Many people wonder why we keep talking about childhood trauma, particularly why we're talking about emotional abuse. Why are we talking about narcissistic parents? Why aren't we over it? Why aren't we just moving on and forgetting about the past? And why don't we just stop using that as an excuse for what we're not able to achieve? Well, there's a reason why we don't do that. The reason why we have to keep talking about abuse, particularly narcissistic parental abuse, and particularly to understand what happened to us during that abuse, is because through what happened to us, we can better understand why we became the way that we did, and therefore we can work toward healing it. But we can't really heal it if we don't understand and comprehend where it comes from, because the process of healing itself requires a recognition of the past and an unlearning of what the past taught us, what we know as the reframing of beliefs, but also what is hopefully more and more known as the inner child work, which functions upon a memory reconciliation process that helps us unlearn what we learned through our past. So, why do we have to keep talking about narcissistic abuse, narcissistic parents, childhood trauma? Well, because we have to find the origins so that we can indeed unlearn the learnings. And today I want to talk about the aftermath of not having a sense of self-trust. So you come out of all of this abuse throughout all of these years, and something that stays with you beyond a lot more other things, like a broken sense of worth, self-hatred, a horrible inner critic, a fear of being seen, fear of intimacy, so all sorts of things that come. We also have a lot of lack and inability to trust our own selves. And that means that essentially we come out in the world and we feel like we have nothing and nobody to fall back to. Because if we cannot trust ourselves, what are we doing, right? What is possible for us, and what kind of lives are we going to lead if we don't trust ourselves? So let's talk about self-trust today and how we don't develop it when we're raised by parents like that. And of course, discuss on how we can actually build self-trust. And let's talk about how we can build self-trust post-parental narcissistic abuse. Now, self-trust is the firm reliance on our own integrity, our judgment, our abilities, and our worth. And what self-trust does, as something that is cultivated within, is this internal sanctuary of safety and confidence, right? So it's the space within where we feel safe and confident to be ourselves, and we trust that who we are is able to cope with things, and most importantly, is able to cope with life. It's almost like when we trust ourselves, when the self-trust, it's almost like we have this relationship with someone, a very intimate and close relationship with someone that we know will always have our back, that we know will always show up for us, that we know that whatever they promise to us, they will do it. We trust them fully. It's something very important here is also to note that having self-trust doesn't mean you think you can achieve everything and you actually achieve everything. It means that even if you fail at achieving whatever it is that you're failing to achieve, you accept yourself. You don't hate yourself. You're your friend, yourself's best friend, really. That's what happens. A really, really good friend to yourself. Now, what does self-trust look like in our lives? Like if you had self-trust, just imagine for a moment, it would be that it will look like you feeling something for something happened, right? And you have an experience, you have a sensation, you have a feeling about it, and you trust it. And you don't really need anybody else to confirm if that is valid, right? So whatever it is that you feeling, you don't like someone, or you think that what somebody did was not good, was off. You don't want to engage in a specific thing. You don't want to partake, whatever. Like you have a feeling and you don't need anybody to confirm it. You trust that feeling. Self-trust is also when you make a decision that you don't spiral about whether it was right or wrong, right? You go for it. In a way, you're not afraid to make mistakes. It's not like you want to make mistakes, but you don't fear anything ruining the whole inner system of who you are because you made a mistake. You're like, okay, I'll make this mistake. And I firstly trust that this is the good decision. And if it's not a good decision, I also trust that I can cope with the consequences. And those consequences are never going to be you berating yourself, right? Because it's not going to be like, I told you so. No, there's trust here. Self-trust also looks like following through on the things that you said you would do, right? Keeping promises to yourself. And it's also not abandoning yourself, of course. And basically, you just rely on yourself. This is what self-trust is. Now, how does self-trust gets eroded in narcissistic environments? Now, first of all, the way we build self-trust comes through the process of growing into ourselves. Because self-trust contains the pillars of I trust that I'm a good person, right, kind of thing. But also I trust in my skills because I have been able to achieve things, right? So a healthy self-trust is built through the experience with ourselves to show up for ourselves. But primarily it's built through our experience with others and how they show up for us, right? It is modeled to us. And also whether those others have allowed us to develop that self-trust by allowing us to grow, to learn, to hone our skills, to make mistakes, to come back, right? So all of that interaction is what builds the trust for the self, which requires some sort of life experience, right? Arguably, if you're just born, you don't really have self-trust, right? But as you start doing things, you start trusting in your little capacities to do little things. So, which is why kids will just start crawling to places because they trust that they can go there. But if somebody's cutting their way and saying, you can't do that, you're useless, you can't even walk yet, what are you even trying to do? Then that would break the self-trust. Does that make sense? Right. So generally, a narcissistic environment, a narcissistic parent, that is the way that they are, and I explain a lot about them on this channel, but they're very critical, right? And they're very, the way they respond to failings and everything is really bad, but also how they relate to you is not trustworthy. They really, a narcissistic environment like that is a really fertile ground for us to really not develop any self-trust. They mock our feelings and our reality, right? So we learn that our feelings are not reliable. They question our reality. Again, they're like, you're overreacting, you're doing this. So we don't trust. Oh, I had this feeling about what happened. They just told me I'm overreacting. Maybe I am overreacting, right? We're being punished for having needs. So we don't stop listening to our own needs. We don't trust what our body is telling us. We don't get approval. And if we do, it's very conditional. So again, we're not focused in ourselves and what we want. We're really aware of other people because we don't trust that we know how to conduct ourselves in a way that it just gains us approval for just existing. We're like, I just have to keep looking at the environment. I don't trust myself to be liked or wanted or accepted, right? The other thing that happens is we're not allowed to have autonomy. We're really mocked and punished for mistakes. We're punished for having needs, for having emotions. We are constantly criticized, and we're only rewarded for compliance. And that means that eventually we're like, wait a minute. Every time I have a decision, I make a mistake, I do this, I do that. Like if it's coming from me, this parent in front of me is being horrible to me. When you're a kid, you don't think, oh, something's wrong with the parent. You're thinking in terms of like what happens, right? The effect of my actions. So you're like, I'm seeing that when I do these things, I get criticized, shamed, ridiculed, rejected. I'm not wanted. I'm not loved. So isn't it safer for me to just look at this parent and ask constantly or adapt to what they want so that I can secure some safety in my life because this is too much? Right. So the understanding is if something is driven from me, if I trust myself, if I do what I want and think is right, I'm going to get punished. And also I'm going to fail, which is, by the way, how we learn in life, right? We were supposed to be encouraged to fail and walk through how we learn from failure. But instead we were punished and shamed for failure. And one of the favorite things that these types of parents will say is, I told you so. Also, they're able to predict everything all of a sudden, except predicting that when they grow when we grow old, we don't want to talk to them anymore. But anyway, so this is what happens. And we stop trusting ourselves and we start outsourcing authority. We second guess everything and we're constantly looking externally for validation. If you think about it in a bigger scale, if I don't learn how to trust myself and my own decisions, it means I'm always looking for someone to tell me what to do. Which means if I finish school, I'm going to want to find a job that a boss gives me my workload and I just do that. I'm not going to have aspirations. I'm not going to dare to do my own thing. I'm not going to dream about stuff. No. And then I'm going to also want to get married and have someone lead me somewhere because I cannot make decisions. I cannot trust myself. I'm also going to join communities, who knows, even cults, who knows what I'm going to do. I'm going to be always more prone to move towards spaces where there's someone who is giving me the guidance to life and makes decisions for me because I can't make them for my own. So I'm going to be in a place where it's a little bit more homogeneous than people trying things. I'm going to be putting myself in places where people expect others to make decisions for them. So I'm also going to follow scripts. I'm not going to choose a different life. I'm not going to, right? So if we look at self-trust at a broader scale, beyond the family, that it gives control to the narcissistic parent, right? That they are always the authority. They are deciding. You're always pending on them. You're always, the world revolves around them. But then on a bigger scale, we see how when we enter the world, if this hasn't been something we've worked on, we don't trust ourselves to step out of the boxes, the tight boxes that the world is going to put us in. And could be our work cubicle, a work that we hate. It could be a marriage that we hate. It could be anything that we were told we're supposed to do because we have never considered making decisions. So it's really important that we cultivate self-trust so that we can not just I trust my decisions. I make great decisions. I have somebody to fall back onto, right? This is the most important thing. I have myself. I need to rely on myself. I have to stop outsourcing and looking for others to give me guidance as to where to go because as if I'm a blind little puppy. But also it's so that I can use this self-trust to dare at creating a life that is more aligned to what I want, right? The whole point of healing, and I'm going to make a parenthesis here that is important. If we think about how therapy traditionally started, I show up in therapy and I'm telling you, I'm not able to adjust to school. I'm not able to adjust to marriage. I'm not able to adjust to my work environment. I'm not able to adjust to my family environment. And you're like, okay, well, you're the problem. And let's teach you how to learn, how to adapt, right? I'm not saying all therapists do that, but if we think about the system as a whole, in many occasions, sadly, a lot of you have shared a lot of stories on that too. We go to therapy or we try to get an intervention. Like a gay person goes to get an intervention to turn into straight because they are the problem, not that they're just gay. Like, you understand? So we have this system and whatever is around us as the given fact of what is. And if we are failing to adapt to what is, then we are the problem instead of being a symptom to all of that dysfunction of all of that system. So the child that doesn't adapt to a family is a symptom of the problems in the family. Same in a toxic environment. The employee that's like, this is horrible, this is toxic, I can't do it anymore. They're not the problem. They're the symptom of a toxic environment, right? Same in society. So when we have enough self-trust, then we are able to understand if we are in environments that don't really match who we are, we can tell that we're not really the problem in the sense that doesn't mean that we're perfect, by the way. It's more like I don't feel bullied into submission here from all of these people because I understand that it's not my environment. And I trust my feeling enough to not try to fix myself so that I can adapt to dysfunction, but instead I'm going to trust myself and move on different paths. I used to have all these random jobs for many years when I was also trying to reorganize my life, right? So you see me here posting these videos. This wasn't always my life. And I went through a lot of phases where it felt like I was swimming in a swamp, right? It was like, it just felt like I could never get out of it. And I had this job. I was working at one place as a hostess, a hotel hostess, which was really horrible environment. And then I remember then I changed to a different hotel, which is a better hotel, and I was a phone operator, right? So I remember being at this place and I was telling someone, if I stay there one more day, my brain is going to explode. I was working in a small office, which, by the way, can fit you. There's nothing wrong with having that's the whole idea, that you find things that are good for you, right? But I found jobs. I used to have random jobs that expected of me things that were not what I wanted to be doing and were so against my character, right? So I was sitting at this office all day and I was a phone operator, repeating the same thing over and over again on the phone for 8 hours straight. And I felt so trapped. And I remember I was telling someone that if I stay there one more day, something's going to happen. They said, just wait. And I'm like, say no more. For me, when somebody tells me what to do, that usually works towards me doing what I always knew I should do, right? So when someone says, no, just, that's it. That for me was like, just hearing someone say, just wait. I'm thinking, wow, that's it. No more. And obviously I didn't quit that day, but that day I looked for something else. And then after that, I kept looking for things that were at least a little bit more adjacent to who I was, a little bit more that matched my personality a little bit more, until I could finally build the life that I built, that is on my own terms and doing what I love and being my own boss, which has its perks. But somebody in sauna yesterday was like, I was telling her how much I work and she's like, your boss sounds crazy. I say, yeah, I'm my own boss. I'm a crazy boss to myself. I work too much. But I get to decide, right? That freedom for me has always been important. But the thing is that I had to develop a lot of self-trust in order to dare at doing what I love. And that doesn't mean that just because I dared, I succeeded from day one, or that my path is constantly filled with more and more successes. But it's a journey, and it's my journey, and I'm owning this journey, and I'm failing, and I'm learning, and I'm doing, I'm adapting. I change things. I keep learning and I keep growing. Self-trust is the foundation that not only changes how we relate with ourselves and feel like there's somebody here to support me, but also it can help us when we're really trying to create something new for ourselves. If we don't trust ourselves, we're not going to do any of that. And what is sad is that we know we want more for some reason. There's something more. It doesn't have to be at a bigger scale, right? You don't have to go online, but it could be anything that you want to try or you want to do, or a life that you want to change somehow. And it's a shame because we will always feel trapped in whatever path that we were put on because we don't trust ourselves enough to give it a try and live our lives on our own terms, right? Now, how do we heal self-trust? Here we are. What I'm going to share is something that I did as well. And of course, it contains something that I always say. The only way to build self-trust in any way, anything that's happening internally, the only way to kind of address it is through inner child work. You have to sit with yourself, get to know yourself, connect yourself, heal yourself, because this is the aspect of self-trust. There's the relational type of self-trust, meaning I trust you to be kind to me. I trust you to help me. I trust you to support me. I trust you to understand me and all that, right? That trust is built relationally and would have been built relationally with your parent, which was just the exact opposite. But you're going to build it through doing inner child work, because every time you show up and you save yourself and you're kind to yourself and you listen to yourself and to your inner children, which are just memories trapped in time that you are correcting the learnings of. Every time you do that, you build a sense of relational self-trust. That is just a wonderful experience to have because you've never had it. You've never had a reliable figure that loves you unconditionally, right? If you had a narcissistic parent. And so this is who you are creating when you're doing this relationship. And this is very healing internally. So we establish that, and then we have to go to the outer world kind of thing and create self-trust based on what we're able to truly achieve, right? For example, if I said, I want to go and open the door, I trust that I can get up, walk, open that door, right? So we need to build trust based on actions, first of all, that we make promises that we keep, but also that we achieve something. We set a goal that we must achieve. And a lot of you here don't hear me talk a lot about goals, but the essence of my work is heal so that you outgrow all of that, and then you set the goals that you want to live the life that you want. I'm not saying be a millionaire or a billionaire or whatever, or a gazi billionaire, but I'm saying live a life that feels successful to you. Successful because it makes you happy, fulfills you, you're doing what you love, you're doing what you're good at, whatever, right? Because this has been my own path as well, and this is what I teach. So although I talk a lot about the past, what I'm really passionate about is to get you to finally look toward the future after you've done what you needed to do in the past so that you can move on from it, right? We're looking at the future. So the first step, as I said, relationally, and then we come into the real world and we're like, okay, there's something I want to achieve. I said I'm going to write that book. I said I'm going to lose weight. I said I'm going to, whatever. It's something that you have told yourself you're going to do. It has to be a practical thing that has a way to be sort of evaluated. Have you done it or not, right? And not so active, like I'm going to read the book, right? Maybe I will reorganize this room and paint it. And I'm going to create this room and finish a project. It's a project that requires physical things, that you do things, that you create things. It requires goal setting. It requires routine. It requires you showing up. And you need to set some sort of time frame of either 30 days or 90 days. You can set longer, but I have found that 30 days is a nice sort of kickstart to say, I'm going to do this for 30 days. For example, you can say, I'm going to read a book for 30 days. I'm going to go walk for 30 days. That's one sort of layer of building self-trust, if you want to start there. But I would say if you want to truly kind of like up it, you can start with that. But if you want to up it, you're like, okay, in 90 days, I'm going to redecorate that room and it's going to look this way in 90 days. In 90 days, I'm going to finish this book. In 90 days, I'm going to lose X amount of weight. In 90 days, I'm going to whatever is your thing, whatever is the project. And it has to be something you've always wanted to do, but we're afraid to, right? Or maybe a lot of you, maybe since you're watching videos on YouTube, maybe thinking, I wanted to always be on YouTube. I want to teach something. Well, I'm going to post YouTube videos for 90 days or whatever. I'm going to start a channel or in 90 days, whatever. You decide. What is important for me is that you understand the following. The reason I don't normally talk about goal setting, although again, this is really what I'm really all about, meaning I want you to move on with your life and just live a fulfilling life. Nothing brings me more joy than seeing women live the lives that fulfill them, right? And usually it's lives we worked very hard for. Unfortunately or fortunately, this is what it is, but it's really beautiful to see it. So the reason I don't talk about it, though, as a main thing is this. If we start to set massive goals without doing healing work and addressing our past trauma, we have this danger of coming into these goals and be a little bit of a David Goggins type of person. If you don't know him, okay, good. But we're going to torture ourselves to get the goal. So we're going to be mean to ourselves. We're going to shame ourselves. We're going to be toxic. We're going to bully ourselves into achieving the goal. And that can help. We can achieve that goal. But I believe that to really align ourselves, not only with achieving a goal, but with what goal and what really fulfills us, we have to first heal our trauma, at least the basic stuff, get that out of the way. So we're not, in deep self-hatred. We're not with a horrible inner critic. We're not in a trauma bond with our parents, in a trauma bond with our partner. Like, we're not like all over the place. being tortured with the aftermath of our childhood, because none of the success that we tried to achieve can fix that, right? It's not going to fulfill us. And so I believe that we have to first heal. And then as we grow into who we are, we're like, oh, these are my skills. This is what I really like. Oh, I used to always like this. That's like the natural byproduct of healing would be to align us better to what we want to do in our lives, what feels authentic to us. And then if we set the goals, after we've done all of this reparenting, we're going to be a nicer coach to ourselves. We're going to be a good parent to ourselves as we're going through this. And this is what's important, that all of this self-trust that we will build relationally is going to come back when it's the moment to do that project that we're committing to for 30 or 90 days. And we're showing up as a coach, as a parent to ourselves. And we're nice. And then that builds even more trust, because we're like, look at that. I just failed. I didn't make this today. I didn't whatever. And this inner experience doesn't tell me that I'm a loser. This experience is guiding me to do things better. If we are trying to do something after we've built a better relationship with ourselves, it's going to be easier to treat ourselves with kindness, even though we will give ourselves some structure and some rules. So if you want to build self-trust, here's how you do it. Build a good relationship with yourself through reparenting, and then build on that relationship. Build some new project with now a new relationship with yourself, and just do something that you've always wanted to do. And if you want a blueprint that will help you do exactly that, of course, heal is the process. Obviously, that is another project that I had to put myself through, doing it through the exact process, because creating a whole program was quite challenging. But I'm really proud of what I did, and most importantly, I'm really proud that I did it. Right. So it's all of that then that builds trust with ourselves. Achieving them and doing them because we said we would really changes our internal landscape. And this is something that helps us move on from the past for good. Because so far, I don't think I was the only one that was swimming in a swamp. But I was unable to help myself because of how much I hated myself, how much I judged myself, how much I was afraid of being rejected, of being seen, all that. And look at me now. It's like I would not be able to do these things. I would not be able to show up, to continue to show up imperfectly as myself if I hadn't done that work. So ultimately, building self-trust will take us to a place where we can actually feel equipped to then build the life that we want. That we can also trust that we can create for ourselves. And also trust that even if we don't, we still have ourselves to fall back to. I'll see you soon.